This is English shorthand dictation number 86 and the dictation speed is 160 words per minute. Ready? Start. Honorable Chairperson, we meet under a heavy sense of responsibility, not only because the task which we have undertaken is a difficult one, or because we presume to represent vast numbers of people, but because we are building for the future and we want to make sure that that building has strong foundations. Above all, we are meeting at a time when a number of disruptive forces are working in India, pulling us this way and that way, and unfortunately when such forces are at work, there is a great deal of passion and prejudice in the air, and our whole minds may be affected by it. While thinking of the present difficulties, we should not be deflected from that vision of the future which we ought to have. That is a dangerous thing which we have to avoid, because we are not building for today or tomorrow. We are making or trying to make a much more enduring structure. It is a warning that we must not allow the passion and prejudice of the moment to make us forget what the real and ultimate problems are which we have to solve. We cannot forget the difficulties of the present because that come in our way all the time. We have to deal with the problems of the present, and in dealing with them, it may be that the troubles we have passed through all these years affect us, but we have to get on. We have to take quick decisions and final decisions in the sense that we have to act on them. We have to be realists, and it is in this spirit of realism, as also in a spirit of idealism, that I say that our negotiating committee approached this task. The House knows that some of the members of the committee have been intimately associated with the struggle of the peoples of the states for their freedom. The more I have been associated with that struggle, the more I have seen that it cannot be separated from the all India problem. It cannot be isolated. It is an essential and integral part of the all India problem, all India structure, just as the states are an integral part of India. You cannot separate them. With all my anxiety to further the progress of the peoples of the states, when I met the negotiating committee, I had to subordinate my individual opinions, because I had to remember all the time that I was representing this constituent assembly. I also had to remember that above all, we had gone there not to bargain with each other, not to have heated argument with each other, but to achieve results and to bring those people into this assembly so that they might come here and they might also be influenced by the atmosphere that prevails here. For me, it was the solemnity of the task which we had undertaken, and not to talk in terms of results or individuals or groupings or assurances. What assurance do we seek from each other? What assurance is even this House going to give to anybody in India except the assurance of freedom? Even that assurance will ultimately depend on the strength and wisdom of the Indian people afterwards. If the people are not strong enough and wise enough to hold together and proceed along the right path, the structure that you have built may be shattered. We can give no assurance to anybody. With what assurance have we sought freedom for India all these years? We have looked forward to the time when some of the dreams that we were indulging in might become true. They are coming true. Perhaps not exactly in the shape that we want, but nevertheless they will come true. It is in that conviction that we have proceeded all these years. We had no guarantees. We had no assurances about ourselves or about our future. Indeed, in the normal course of events, the only partial guarantee that most of us had was the guarantee of tears and troubles, and we had plenty of that. It may be that we shall have plenty of that in the future too. We shall face them. This House will face it, and the people of India will face it. So who are we to give guarantees to anybody? but we do want to remove misapprehensions as far as possible. We do want every Indian to feel that we are going to treat him as an equal and brother, but we also wish him to know that in the future what will count is not so much the crown of gold or silver or something else, but the crown of freedom as a citizen of a free country. It may be that a time may come soon when it will be the highest honor and privilege for anybody, whether he is a ruler or anybody else, to be a free citizen of a free India and to be called by no other appellation or title. We do not guarantee, because we guarantee nothing to anybody, but that is the thing which we certainly hope to achieve, and we are certain to achieve. We invite them to participate in that. We welcome those who have come, and we shall welcome others when they come. We shall say nothing about those who do not come. But as I said before, inevitably as things are, the gulf will widen between those who come and those who do not come. They will march along different paths, and that will be unfortunate. I am convinced that those paths will meet again, and meet sooner rather than later. But in any event, there is going to be no compulsion. Those who want to come will come, and those who do not want to come will not come. When we talk about people coming in and people who do not come in, let it be remembered that the people of the states want to come into this assembly, and if others prevent them from coming, it is not the fault of the people, but brakes and barriers are put in their way. However, I hope that these questions will not arise in the future, and that in the coming months nearly all the states will be represented here, and jointly we shall participate in the final stages of drawing up the constitution. I am placing this resolution before the House to record the report. There has been some argument about this matter too, and people attach a great deal of importance to words and phrases and assurances and things like that. Is it not good enough that I have put it to the House? If it is not good enough, I may repeat what has been stated. Even if that is not good enough, what we have stated is there in the verbatim report of the meetings. We have nothing to add to it. We shall stand by that. But the procedure to be adopted must be a correct procedure. When this committee was appointed, you asked us to report, and we have reported. We had got to do something, and we tried to do that and did it. Now, if this matter was to come up for ratification before this House, before it could be acted upon, obviously representatives of the states who are here now would not have been here. They would have been sitting at the doorstep or somewhere outside waiting for ratification, waiting for something to happen till they came in. That was not the way in which we understood our directions. We understood that we had to come to some honorable agreement and act up to it so that representatives of the states might come in as early as possible. We were eager that they should join the committees of this assembly which we have formed. It is not our fault that there was delay. At the very first joint meeting of the negotiating committee, we requested the states committee to join quickly and to send their representatives to the committees of the constituent assembly as soon as possible. We were asked for assurance at every stage, and there were delays. But the way we have understood your mandate was that we had to go ahead and not wait for ratification of every step that we had taken. We acted accordingly, and I am happy that some of the states' representatives are here today, and I hope more will come. So the question of ratification does not arise so far as this committee's work is concerned. The report is before you. If you disapprove of any single step that we have taken, express your disapproval of whatever might have happened, or otherwise give your directions. The resolution I have moved is for your adoption. I shall not go into the details in regard to the distribution of the seats and the manner of selection of the delegates from the states. It was a sort of compromise. Naturally, it was my desire, as it was the desire of my colleagues, that the representatives of the states should be elected by the people of the states. partly because it was the right way, and partly because it was the way in which they could be fitted with the other elected elements of this House. On the other hand, I considered it right and desirable that the state governments should also be represented here to bring reality to the picture. The correct way and the right way ultimately will be for the state governments themselves to be representative of the people and then come in to represent them here.